Welcome back to the Daily Dope. I am your host and commentator, Brand, and I live in Michigan, so here's another update for Michigan. And this is for the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. The applications were available and could be turned in on Friday the 15th of December. And I guess what happened was they were expecting a lot of people, and not a lot of people showed up, so let's check it out. On a frigid, snowy December morning, nearly 10 years after medical marijuana became legal in Michigan, the fully regulated business officially started. The day started with a whimper rather than the bang that state regulators had prepared for. 2 hours after the doors opened at the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, only 2 people had shown up to turn in their applications for medical marijuana licenses. Only 2 Michigan State police officers stood guard outside, waiting along stanchions and red velvet ropes that formed a line for a crush of people that didn't show up. Online was a different story. 91 people logged onto the system between 12:01 when it went live. That was 12:01 a.m. when it went live to 4 p.m. Friday, and I was one of those. I downloaded a copy of the 47-page application just to take a look at it. 68 of those people submitted at least some of the documents required to apply for a medical marijuana license, and 5 of those people turned in completed applications and paid the $6,000 fine. But only 9 people showed up at Laura offices in Lansing to turn in applications. Dan Madigan, an Ann Arbor resident, was the first to show up, hoping to make the transition from caregiver, who has been supplying clients, mostly veterans with ailments like post-traumatic stress disorder and cancer, with marijuana, to a Class A grower in Washtenaw County, who can produce up to 500 medical marijuana plants. Quote, "I'm the first one, where's my prize?" Ever since I started working with veterans, I felt good about this because I'm a veteran and it's the right thing to do. Well, after I read this, I'll get back to him about the patients that he just abandoned, because the thing about working these facilities is you can no longer be involved in the current program as a caregiver. He started as a caregiver about 4 years ago when a couple of friends who were veterans became ill and wanted medical marijuana. Quote, "I asked them where did they get it, and it was off the street," he said. "That's how I started. Everything I grow was tested, no pesticides." Andrew Brisboe, director of the state's Bureau of Medical Marijuana Licensing, stayed up all night at the department watching as applications started to roll in online. Quote, "It was exciting. It's the culmination of a year's worth of hard work," he said. The state, which passed a vague medical marijuana ballot proposal in 2008, finally got around to passing a law that would regulate and tax medical cannabis last year and begun accepting license applications Friday morning. The original medical marijuana ballot proposal allows caregivers to grow up to 72 marijuana plants for up to 5 people with medical marijuana cards. But there were never any hard and fast rules for those growers, so an atmosphere of lawlessness prevailed in many parts of the state. Some cities turned a blind eye to the caregiver centers that popped up across the state, allowing marijuana dispensaries to operate relatively undisturbed. But other areas of the state cracked down, raiding, arresting, and prosecuting people who were growing and distributing marijuana to people with chronic illnesses. There's currently people that we know dealing with that still, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Probably the next round will happen sometime during the application process, or right when someone finds out they didn't get approved or something. Lawmakers tried for several years to regulate the marijuana market and legalize non-smokable forms of medical marijuana, such as baked goods, candies, and infused oils, but couldn't get a package together that gained the support of essential groups, especially law enforcement, until last year. Now with the fully regulated market, 5 categories of licenses: grower, processor, testing facility, secure transporter, and dispensaries, will begin to be handed out in the spring by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Licensing Board. And then legal sales and growing operations can begin for the 265,607 Michiganders who have medical marijuana cards. The market is expected to have at least $711 million in sales, bringing in $21 million in tax revenue to the state from a 3% excise tax on the sale of medical marijuana at dispensaries. But on Friday, with 4 stations open to accept applications standing mostly empty, state officials said it was better to be ready for the crush, especially with nearly 2,000 people showing up for classes held across the state last month to explain the licensing process. One of the challenging things all along was predicting how many applications we'd get and how many people there would be, Briscoe said. We wanted to over-prepare versus under-prepare. We've been consistently surprised with the interest that we've had with everything that we've done since the passage of these bills. And again, here you can see this guy here kind of sitting there waiting for people with his cash box open, and obviously they're expecting cash for the transaction to the licensing bureau. And I really don't understand where they're coming from with that. Nobody was allowed to make cash so far. Sorry about that. Anyway, we'll go ahead and read the rest of the article. Hermane Bodelia of Brighton turned in a license application for a dispensary and grow operation in Washtenaw County on behalf of her sister. She hopes to get involved in the business as a partner rather than as a patient rather than a partner. I've had a stroke and I'm recovering from breast cancer. I refuse to go through chemo, she said. I've tried, but I wanted to deal with my problem painlessly. There is no deadline for applications with the state. Under the law passed last year, the state cannot put limits on the number of licenses awarded, but cities, townships, and villages can determine if they want medical marijuana businesses in their towns and how many businesses they'll allow. So, now one of the things that we want to talk about real quick is why the lines were so dismal, why there was only a handful of people really total. I mean, if you want to count the online plus the regular people, we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of municipalities. 2,500 local municipal governments in Michigan. So here's one of the main reasons, besides the fact that the people that would have been involved in a regulated medical marijuana marketplace would be people that were already involved in that said marketplace. But according to the law that we've been living under, none of those people were allowed to, make a whole bunch of money. There was no regulations or ways to get taxes from them or any of that. It was just basically they didn't have any kind of a way that they were allowed to make money, and all the things were kind of aimed at them not making money, and people were getting, people that made a lot of money were getting arrested. They were easily picked out of the crowd, I guess. I'm not sure. But anyway, none of those people were definitely allowed to be super rich, like especially growers. Growers were supposed to, magically make their patients pay way more than medical marijuana is even worth, just so they could pay their bills or something. I'm not sure how it was supposed to work, but what you have here is growers having to show financial requirements, assets of $150,000 for a Class A grower, which is 500 plants, and then you just add 500. Yeah, that's 1,000, and that's 1,500 plants. So I don't know. I mean, seems like a Class A grower shouldn't have to show that much money. I mean, it's hard not to show that much money if you want to grow 500 plants. But so are you supposed to invest all your money into this grow facility or whatever, or just have the money sitting aside? I'm not sure, where they come up with this idea that you should have this money up front, because you don't. I mean, to grow 500 plants, you really don't need a facility that even costs $150,000. Really, you can get away with about a third of that if you do it right. I don't know. I just don't think that a lot of people, like processors. I don't even know any processors right now. Usually the caregiver pretty much is the processor, or they might hire a couple people to help out or something like that. But it's not something where you have $300,000 worth of equipment sitting around per se. I mean, you could set up a pretty nice lab. I'm just not sure why a processor would need to show $300,000 worth of assets. Same with a provisioning center. Now, I will say that a lot of provisioning centers probably will have close to that in facility and equipment and stuff like that. But, in inventory, maybe like cash on hand, I'm sure they can put it together. But there is a lot of them that don't. There's a lot of provisioning centers, like it says down here. Chad Morrow is a former dispensary owner. He said he opened up a shop with a $25,000 loan. So it just doesn't make sense why you would have to show $300,000 unless they're just trying to just straight up cut a lot of people right out of the business, right off the top. And we're talking about places in small towns where, the whole facility can probably be worth about $100,000, maybe even less, for everything you're talking about, including inventory. So whatever. This one don't make sense either. To me, secure transport, it seems like they should be required to show more than $200,000, because you can get like 2 or 3 trucks and there's your $200,000, So maybe they're, oh yeah, we'll let you guys get a low requirement, because I don't know who these guys are anyway. Sounds like some shady middleman type thing that, when they were writing the law, these guys were sitting in the room like, hey, where are we going to get in on it at? And then again, the labs, you could easily buy $200,000 worth of lab equipment and be like, hey, I got the assets right here, or have the cash. But I would think that you're going to pretty much get a loan for the equipment, get a loan for the whole business all around. So the licensing requirements, to me, is probably a major factor as to why a lot of people don't want to get involved with this medical marijuana facilities licensing. It's just a guess. I don't think there's really an issue with the climate in Michigan as far as people worried about getting busted, but it just seems like big investors really never really want to take their chances on cool shit in Michigan anyway. Like, you don't see a whole lot of movies getting made by people from Michigan. It's usually like the Hollywood people come in here, make a movie, and then get out. Or in like Transformers, maybe they stay for a few, but they still eventually leave. Here's another big problem that the Licensing Act is seeing and play out to them, because, one of the main things is that your municipality has to have rules in place for facilities. That was one of the main sticking points I had. And one of the things going on with me is that my city, my township or whatever, they had a meeting or two and they decided not to have the licensed facilities in this town. So in all, 33 Michigan municipalities have approved ordinances allowing medical marijuana businesses, and another 14 have drafted rules but not voted on them yet. According to a California-based company called Weed Maps, which maps dispensary locations for patients. The 33 communities comprise of about 1% of the state's more than 2,500 local municipal governments, according to a list compiled by a medical marijuana cell phone app company. Under the new emergency rules approved by the state, local governments must have an ordinance allowing medical marijuana before the state will grant businesses within their jurisdiction a license to operate legally. Those include growers, transporters, and testing facilities. Detroit, Lansing, Ann Arbor, and Flint are among the large cities that have passed ordinances, but smaller communities such as Acme Township outside of Traverse City and the village of Constantine in southwest Michigan are also trying to get businesses to set up shop. Acme Township Supervisor Jay Zollinger said he and others in the township understood people wanted medical marijuana, and they figured the best way to control the coming wave is to embrace it. Quote, didn't we try that once in America with Prohibition? America was still making beer during Prohibition. If you're going to do something, let's do it honestly, and let's have some reasonable control over it, Zollinger said. This will be an ongoing thing. This is David Harns of the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. He's the spokesman. He's talking about how this is going to be an ongoing thing that any local municipality can join in whenever they want. If they're not already opt-in, they can opt in later on. No big deal, but the town I live in, they were like, oh, well, we don't think that they really wrote they didn't think of everything when they wrote the ordinances or the laws, the Public Act 281 and 283 and 282. And I say to that, yeah, they did, man. I mean, if you don't think they looked at everything and figured out every little detail of everything that they wanted to have in this law, you apparently have not looked at it at all. All right, it's a huge law. I mean, the application's 47 pages, and it's probably one of the most intrusive applications I've ever seen for a license. So there's one more little thing I wanted to show you about this story, and this is written by Larry Gabriel in Detroit. Brave New World for Marijuana in Michigan. Basically talking about how, expensive it is, and, this 47-page application, you better have some lawyers combing over it with you. $6,000 fee. So now we have the West Coast Meds in Detroit, Mark Snipes. It's going to be a lot of information that you have to give them, but I think we'll be okay. West Coast Meds is a family operation, and Snipes has been struggling to keep it that way. I went by the shop to ask how the state application process was going since the state began accepting them last Friday. When I arrived, there was a sign reading "closed for a few days" on West Coast Med's door. I phoned Snipes and caught him on his way to a city office. Quote, I'm on my way downtown to see if I can remain open while I'm in the application process, he says. I'm working on it. We're going through the process. We have to go through the city process first. There's a box to check on a state application verifying that you have a local license to do business. That's another document and fee, $3,000 in Detroit. None of this includes property build-out, security systems, and the like. According to the information posted on the Cannabis Legal Group, opening a dispensary costs from $400,000 to $500,000. Snipes didn't have a millionaire on hand. He was planning to put in the application for growing, processing, and distribution facilities, but the price tag for doing that all at once is too steep, particularly the amounts each business has to hold in escrow accounts. Depending on which license one has, the business would need to hold anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000 per license. If I go for all three, that is like $1.1 million, Snipes says. I may have to get one, and as I go, keep adding to it. Most people don't have $1 million. Not the small people. It seems like they're trying to eliminate the small people. And that's pretty much where I'm at with this. The small people that were there before, especially the growers, were never allowed. This was never like, we weren't allowed to just grow willy-nilly. We had a limit on plants, we had a limit on patients, and the total number of plants that anybody could ever grew was 72. Nobody got rich off that. Not rich enough to buy a $500,000 grow facility and have hundreds of thousands in escrow or whatever. So I'm just not convinced that the participation of this is going to be completely by people that were in the program before. I'm seeing like a second layer of people coming into this to try to take over the industry. It might not happen today or tomorrow, but that's what's on the horizon. I mean, call me a hater if you want, but I just really don't see being involved in these facilities as being the same thing as being a caregiver when it comes to the patients that you have. Just, this is a final note, and this is not a slam against Mr. Madigan here of Ann Arbor, but remember earlier, he was the guy that's talking about that he started because of he's a veteran and his friends are veterans, and they were, he wanted to help them because they had these ailments, which I believe he said cancer and PTSD. So I just don't know, for people that have cancer and PTSD, there's really there's no waiting period. This guy's going to have this period of time between when he has to stop being a caregiver and when he's working in his facilities. And if he's growing with a Class A grow and he's trying to grow 500 plants, he does not get ownership of those plants. He has already had to forfeit his caregiver status, and his patients are no longer his patients. They're strictly responsible for acquiring their medical marijuana on their own. He's not allowed to even use any of his 500 plants that he's growing for himself, as far as I know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can't just go out and grab weed off of plants that you have to eventually turn over to the transporter has to take it to I'm still not sure about the logistics of once plants are done growing at a grow facility, because then there's this processing plant, and sometimes they're not always going to be in the same building. They can be, but they're not always going to be. So I'm not sure what's going on there. The transporter comes and takes a bunch of plants that you just chopped down over to the next spot where the processor processes it. That doesn't sound very cool. So I don't know. I'll have to look at the logistics of that later on whenever they hammer that out, or if they already have. I don't really know what they're talking about. But applications are available. $6,000, 47 pages. I highly recommend that if you're going to fill one of these out, to make sure you have your lawyer with you, and maybe even 2 or 3 different flavors of lawyers. This form is seriously the most crazy, detailed, background checking, vetting, good steward. You practically got to be like the Model A citizen, completely squeaky clean with perfect credit, and it's unbelievable, this application. So good luck everybody with that. I will not be participating in the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. I've already stated my case loud and clearly about how they could have handled the problem of dispensaries and overages and all that stuff. It wasn't a problem. It just needed to be brought out of the darkness or the shadows or whatever. But instead, they wanted to write this crazy facilities thing that made everything into these big facilities. Even a 500 plant medical marijuana grow, that's a big facility, and it's good luck running those. Good luck running those 1,000 plant. Good luck running those 1,500 plant facilities, and then you can stack licenses. So good luck running 3,000 plants or 6,000 plants. Um, and most of all, if you churn in one of these applications, good luck to you, because we need this program to succeed. We really need it to succeed. I predict that there's going to be some serious problems over the next 18 months. It sounds like a long time, but I think that's a short time if that's as long as these problems are going to be. And what I'm talking about is patients are going to have problems getting medical marijuana in Michigan. It's not going to be that easy. And for the guy that's about to throw away his cancer and PTSD patients, I hope he has a plan for them, or I hope maybe they start growing weed or something. But something to consider, guys. The success of this Facilities Act thing, as much as we don't want it to succeed, I don't know why you would. It's a total like taxing medicine system that obviously caters to people with a lot of money on the onset. Treating it like this isn't a grassroots thing anymore. I mean, you know, some people call it, and it sounds kind of like a dirty name, but like a cottage industry. And it's, you know, more or less where the economic benefits are spread out across many people, and the economic benefits are, you know, pretty reasonable, but not like big, rich piles of money. And then this method here that they're trying to do is the exact opposite. It's like the giant facilities, and there's not a whole lot of personal individual attention paid to things, and you know, we can only hope for the best on it. And to me, it seems like one of the things we hate to think about with the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act is big giant corporate players coming in and taking over. Although right now we hate the sound of that, but in about 6 months they might be the only thing that's going to save medical marijuana in Michigan, because, you know, if you aren't going to get enough people to get these licensed facilities running, you know, where's all the supply going to come from? So I don't know. That's all I got on this. Again, we could have figured out how to get caregivers to be able to do the businesses they were already doing with dispensaries. We could have just legalized all that, and there would still have been room for these giant facilities to do whatever they want. That's all I got. Hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe if you notice that you're not subscribed. Have a good one.